Have you noticed how everyone today is trying to be the loudest voice in the room? On social media, people shout about their success. At work, people fight to prove they're the smartest. Even in everyday life, it feels like whoever talks more gets more respect. But here's the twist. Monks live the exact opposite way. They don't shout. They don't argue. They don't try to prove anything. And yet, they carry a strength, a calmness, a kind of invincibility that silences the noise around them. What if the secret to real power in today's world isn't being louder, but being quieter? Today, I'll share with you 7 powerful lessons on why silence, not noise, makes you truly unstoppable. Think about how much of your life is spent explaining yourself. You post on Instagram to prove you're grinding. You text long messages to defend why you didn't show up to an event. At work, you over-explain small details, hoping your boss will notice your effort. With family, you keep justifying why your dreams don't look like theirs. But monks don't live this way. They understand a truth that modern life makes us forget. People who truly trust you don't need explanations, and people who doubt you won't believe them anyway. When you keep explaining yourself, you're secretly asking for permission, for approval, for validation. And that's draining. Imagine trying to water a plant that has no roots. It doesn't matter how much effort you give, it won't grow. The same is true when you explain yourself to people who were never listening in the first place. Instead, monks choose silence. Not silence as in weakness, but silence as in confidence. They let their actions speak louder than their words. Because results are undeniable. No explanation needed. Think about this. The loud person says, "I'm working hard." The quiet one just works hard, and eventually, everyone sees the results. Which one has more power? In today's world, your silence is a statement. Every time you resist the urge to defend yourself, you keep your energy, your focus, and your dignity. You stop playing small games and start living with quiet power. That's the real strength. Proving nothing and becoming everything. We live in a world where people are waiting to provoke you. Online, it's trolls hiding behind fake profiles. At work, it's the coworker who throws subtle jabs during meetings. In life, it could be a family member who criticizes every decision you make. The trap is this. When you react instantly, you hand them your power. You let their words control your mood, your peace, your focus. That's exactly what they want, to pull you into their storm. Monks teach the opposite. Not every attack deserves a reaction. In fact, silence is the response that starves negativity. Loud people waste energy defending themselves. Quiet people protect energy by walking away. Think of social media. When someone leaves a hateful comment, most people fight back. Hours of energy wasted, emotions drained. But the person who ignores, deletes, or simply moves on, they win because they never played the game in the first place. It's like a fire. If you pour gasoline, your reaction on it, it grows. But if you give it nothing, it dies out. That's the power of silence. Remember this. Your peace is more valuable than proving a point. The next time someone tries to bait you into anger, ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. True strength isn't shown in how loudly you fight back, but in how calmly you rise above. Look around you. Noise is everywhere. Notifications buzzing, people oversharing online, colleagues talking just to fill space in meetings, friends bragging about their lives, even if half of it isn't true. In this world, silence is rare, and whatever is rare becomes powerful. Monks understand this deeply. They know that when you're not constantly speaking, posting, or seeking attention, people notice you more, not less. Silence creates mystery, And mystery creates influence. Think about it. The person who talks nonstop often gets ignored, but the one who speaks little and only when necessary instantly commands attention. In school or in the office, the quiet one who only speaks when they've thought things through is the one everyone listens to. It's the same with your personal life. If you're always available, always explaining, always broadcasting every move, you become predictable, even boring. But when you move in silence, people wonder, what's going on with them? What are they working on? That curiosity is power. Even in relationships, silence is strength. The person who doesn't rush to fill every gap with words creates deeper presence. You don't need to say much to be felt. So, while the world is screaming for attention, remember, the loudest person fades into the noise, but the silent one stands out. Your silence doesn't make you invisible. It makes you unforgettable. The world is louder than ever. Every second, something is demanding your attention. Messages, ads, breaking news, endless scrolling on social media. Most people live in this constant noise, jumping from one distraction to another without ever building anything meaningful. This is why monks value silence. They know silence is not just peace, it's focus. In silence, the mind stops chasing every sound, every notification, every opinion. It locks onto what truly matters. Think of two types of people. The first one brags online about hustling, posting pictures of their work setup, sharing motivational quotes. The second one says nothing, quietly putting in hours of study, practice, or business building. Months later, the second person has real results. The first person, still posting, still distracted. Focus doesn't need an audience. Distraction always seeks one. Even in everyday life, this lesson applies. In the office, the loud coworker spends the day talking about how busy they are. The quiet one finishes their tasks and leaves with results. At school, the loud student shows off in class. The quiet one studies in silence and aces the exam. Monks teach us this truth. Silence builds, noise consumes. Every time you choose silence over distraction, you sharpen your edge. Every time you focus quietly instead of proving loudly, you grow stronger. Loud people chase recognition. Quiet people chase mastery. And in the long run, mastery always wins. Words are powerful. They can inspire, heal, and uplift, but they can also cut, destroy, and leave scars that last for years. In today's world, where communication is instant and constant, the danger of regret from careless words is greater than ever. One moment of anger can be broadcast to thousands online. One reckless text can break a relationship. And one outburst at work can follow you for years. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you said something you didn't truly mean? Something you later replayed in your head, wishing you could erase. Maybe it was in a heated argument with your partner, when anger made you say words that wounded them deeply. Maybe it was during a family conflict, where instead of bringing peace, your words widened the distance. Or maybe it was at work, snapping at your boss or colleague, and losing respect you had carefully built over months. This is where silence becomes a shield. Monks understand that silence is not weakness. It is a pause, a filter, a moment of clarity that protects you from future regret. When someone insults you, your instinct is to fire back. When you feel attacked, your ego wants to defend itself instantly. But if you can hold silence, even for a few breaths, you step out of impulse and into wisdom. You give yourself space to ask, if I say this, will I regret it later? Does this reaction build me, or does it break me? Think of silence like armor. Every word you hold back in the heat of the moment is a shield against the pain tomorrow. Silence doesn't mean you never speak. It means you speak only after you've thought, after you've calmed, after you've chosen words that bring strength instead of destruction. Examples are everywhere. On social media, one angry post written in 2 minutes can damage your reputation for years. At home, one sharp comment can turn a small disagreement into a wound that lingers for decades. In business, one emotional email sent too quickly can ruin a partnership. But the person who practices silence, who waits, thinks, and responds instead of reacting, avoids all of this. Their silence protects not just themselves, but their relationships, their reputation, and their peace. Monks often say, "You will never regret the words you didn't speak, but you will regret the ones you said without thought." The truth is, silence is not empty. It is full of wisdom. It is not avoidance. It is strength. It doesn't mean you're weak or afraid. It means you are powerful enough to control yourself when others cannot. In a world where loudness is celebrated, silence is misunderstood. But if you look closer, you'll see. The strongest people are not those who shout the most. They are the ones who can stay silent, protect their dignity, and let time reveal the truth. So next time you feel the urge to argue, to clap back, to defend yourself instantly, remember this: silence is your shield, and that shield will save you from battles you never needed to fight and regrets you never needed to carry. Look at today's world. Social media, workplaces, even friendships. What do you see? People constantly trying to prove themselves. Flashy cars on Instagram, endless selfies with fake smiles, loud debates where no one actually listens, people bragging about their hard work, their money, their success, even if half of it isn't real. Why? Because ego craves attention. Ego shouts, "Look at me, respect me, validate me." Loudness is often nothing more than insecurity disguised as confidence. But monks have mastered the opposite path. They know that silence is the mark of true strength. When you're genuinely confident, you don't need to announce it. When you're at peace with yourself, you don't need others to confirm your worth. When you're disciplined, your results speak louder than your voice ever could. Think about this in real life. At work, the loudest person in the meeting is usually the one desperate to prove their importance. They interrupt, they overtalk, they dominate. But the one who listens quietly, then speaks a few well-chosen words, that's the person everyone remembers. Strength whispers, ego shouts. In friendships, the loud, ego-driven person constantly reminds you of what they've done for you, what they own, or who they know. But the strong friend doesn't need to remind you. They show loyalty through actions, not words. And you always trust them more because their silence carries weight. Even in arguments, notice this: the louder someone shouts, the more fragile their position usually is. They're not raising their voice because they're strong. They're raising it because deep down they feel weak. Silence, on the other hand, doesn't flinch. It doesn't need to convince. It doesn't need to win approval. That's strength. Monks embrace silence because it kills the ego. Ego thrives on being heard, being right, being admired. But when you choose silence, you crush the ego's need for recognition. And in doing so, you step into real power, the kind that can't be shaken by praise or destroyed by criticism. History proves this truth. The greatest leaders were not the ones who shouted the most, but the ones whose presence spoke louder than their words. Think of leaders like Nelson Mandela or Mahatma Gandhi, people of quiet conviction whose silence carried more authority than an army of loud voices. In today's digital age, this lesson is even more urgent. People are addicted to showing off, posting luxury items, vacations, achievements, not because they are truly fulfilled, but because their ego is starving for attention. But what happens when you stop feeding that ego? You become free. Free from comparison, free from judgment, free from the endless race of who looks better. That freedom is real strength. Monks teach, a tiger doesn't proclaim it's a tiger. It moves silently, and its presence is enough. The same is true for you. You don't need to announce your every move, every success, every struggle. If you are strong, people will see it without you saying a word. So ask yourself this: are you being loud because of ego, or are you being silent because of strength? One fades quickly, the other lasts forever. When the noise dies down, when the applause stops, when the critics go silent, the person who built their power in silence will still stand strong. That's why silence is not emptiness. It is mastery. Loudness seeks validation. Silence embodies it. Loudness depends on others. Silence depends on no one. And that's what makes silence the ultimate proof of strength. In today's world, everyone is trying to be seen, trying to be heard, trying to grab attention. People flood the internet with selfies, loud opinions, and constant updates. They think the louder they are, the more powerful they look. But here's the paradox monks teach us. True power doesn't chase attention. It draws it naturally. Think about the people who inspire you most. Are they the ones who shout their worth, or the ones who carry a calm strength that makes you lean in without them saying a word? That's the power of silence. It turns you into a magnet. Monks understand that silence creates mystery, and mystery creates influence. When you don't reveal everything about yourself, people can't predict you. They wonder what you're thinking. They pay attention when you finally speak, and they respect the weight of your presence. Compare it to two leaders. One talks endlessly about how great they are, making promises, bragging about achievements. The other speaks rarely, but when they do, their words hit with force, because silence gave their voice power. Which leader would you follow? Even in personal life, this lesson is real. Think about relationships. The person who overshares, who constantly explains, who always talks about themselves, often loses value in the eyes of others. But the one who holds silence, who listens deeply, who reveals carefully, they become unforgettable. Silence builds depth, and depth is magnetic. The modern world rewards noise with temporary attention, but silence, when combined with action, earns lasting respect. Psychologists call this the aura effect. The less you reveal, the more people project strength, wisdom, and confidence onto you. Silence gives space for others to see what they wish you are, and that's more powerful than anything you could say. Monks prove this every day. They don't argue. They don't brag. They don't chase validation. Yet people travel across the world to sit in their presence, just to absorb their calm energy. Not because monks shout, but because their silence radiates peace and certainty. Here's the truth. Silence isn't weakness, it's leverage. Every time you choose silence, you gain control over the situation. Every time you refuse to react loudly, you become the one others can't figure out. And in a noisy world, the one who cannot be read, the one who doesn't need to prove, holds the greatest power. Remember this: noise seeks attention, but silence commands it. Noise fades quickly, but silence leaves an echo that lingers. Be silent, be focused, be magnetic. That's how monks walk their way to invincibility. The world tells you to shout louder, to prove yourself, to fight for attention. But monks show us a different path. A path where silence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate strength. When you stop explaining yourself, when you master your reactions, when you trade noise for focus, you begin to step into a different level of power. You stop being controlled by the world, and instead, you control how the world responds to you. Because here's the truth: the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. The one who speaks less, but acts more. The the one who chooses silence over noise. That's the person people follow, respect, and remember. In a noisy world full of distractions, silence is rebellion. It's clarity. It's freedom. So don't waste your energy proving, arguing, or chasing attention. Build quietly. Move silently. Let your results speak so loudly that your silence becomes unforgettable. Remember this: noise is temporary, but silence is timeless. Noise fades, but silence creates legends. Choose silence, and in that silence, you'll find invincibility.